Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome an accomplished author and very well-known professional from Pittsburgh, USA, Sheila Collins. Sheila, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, Ash.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Sheila is an author of a book titled Warrior Mother, Fierce Love, Unbearable Loss, and the Rituals That Heal. She has a forthcoming book, which is The Art of Grieving, How Art and Art Making Help Us Grieve and Live Our Best Lives. And before I ask Sheila any questions, I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out both of Sheila's books, and I will do the same myself. So Sheila, let me start by asking you my first question. Can you share some pivotal moments from your grief journey that significantly influenced your work?
Oh, there are so many. In fact, that's why it became necessary to write a book about it, not just a column or a single blog. The whole idea of even writing Warrior Mother came because of so much grief and so much misinformation about it, even though I was a therapist and a social worker and a professor. So if I had not the right information, it's not surprising that other people didn't either.
Well said. And, you said that you have been a therapist and a professor. How has your personal experience with loss shaped your own professional path?
Well, I think we go to school and we get all the book knowledge, and then we teach, and then in the meantime life happens, right?
Correct.
So the odd thing was that when I was going through, especially when I was going through with my daughter, so much of what I knew was not really right. I mean, it was clear that I had misinformation, and people are not often aware of the fact that, I guess we can take it back to Freud. Freud had a notion that when someone dies, you must, just get rid of that person in your life, go on. Okay. And so we have this moving on concept, which is just horrible, for wisdom for sure, and for joy in your life too.
Very well said. So let's talk about the art of grieving, and I'll ask you a question about Warrior Mother later. What, in your view, are some of the common misconceptions about grief that you would like to dispel?
Well, one I just even mentioned was this notion that you move on. Yeah. I also think it's the image we have. So we have the image that it's stair steps. And if you look in any anybody goes back in a newspaper article or anything, they always refer to this particular theory, which is like, to me, it's like the stair steps. You have anger, and then you have bargaining, and then you have these, and you get to the top and you brush your hands off and say we're done. And of course nobody is, and so then it's a great cause of suffering, because you're thinking, well, I'm doing it wrong, or mother's doing it wrong, or it's so that was a big motivation for me once I realized the reality was not what we assume
it to be. Absolutely well said. Sheila, you also explore how various art forms aid in the grieving process. Can you share how you first discovered this connection?
Well, first of all, Ash, I was sort of born a dancer. So my mother was not allowed to dance. She had to take piano lessons, which art is not fun if you don't want to do it.
Correct.
So she got me started when I'm like 3 years old or something. And for me, it just really caught on. And so it was just part of my life, and not recognizing as we don't until we look back what that gift is, you know. And so I think that the gift of dance is embodiment, being in your body. And even though I'm very intellectual at times, and you know, being at the university, and I love to learn things, but that knowledge of being present, and that is what you get from, well, you can get it from sports sometimes too, but I think the notion of being able to go into your body. I also have discovered that there is a part of us that is smarter than we are.
Right.
So I think the arts take us into that place. That place, Einstein spoke of it. He said that, you know, this intellectual part should not be the driver. It is the intuitive part that should be. So the arts take us into the intuitive, and then it informs the intellect.
What a great response. What a great response. Thank you. You also speak about the role of storytelling and the role it can play in healing and managing grief. Tell me a little more about this.
Well, okay, so I have to give you a little backstory. So I'm a dancer, and then I become a social worker, and then I put those two together. And so, you know, I help people to tell their stories in what I call transforming ways, not just the same old, but in a different way. So I start using some of the things I know from theater and you know, in my experience as a dancer in theater. So I discovered Cynthia Winton Henry and Phil Porter are their names, and they were in California, dancers who were also ministers, and they developed a system of improvisational storytelling. And when I met them, it was like, oh my goodness, this is, you know, it just felt like this was something that I knew, but they had put it together in such an easy, organized way. And so I just became very involved in it. By the way, we have a large community of interplayers in India, and I know that's where you are. So it's gotten to be, you know, quite around the world. There's a large community in Australia and, of course, English-speaking countries, you know.
Yeah, well said.
So anyway, the notion of it, you asked me about storytelling. So I think it's the notion of our stories, that's our life. And as we tell and retell, or as we tell in a different way, we learn, we harvest, I think, the wisdom.
So Sheila, my next question is, what challenges do people face when integrating grief into their lives? And how can they overcome this grief?
Yes. So we are taught things that are not so. We have images in our minds that aren't reality, and we're isolated from one another. So I think, and there's this notion of maturity, which is that you're just always in charge, in control. You stay calm and carry on, as the British taught us, you know, and that is not love. That's not life, and it's not good grieving either. So so part of it is to when you think about what is the solution, it's first of all to kind of erase that, you know, that model, and to recognize that it does require grieving, and processing does require emotion. It does require, you know, a review back. See, that's the other thing. If you're in this sort of stair-step model, you know, that doesn't give you the opportunity, where if you look at grieving as a spiral, then it comes around again every year. Every year is the anniversary of whatever loss you had. But it's not exactly the same place. It's a spiral. So I'm different. I'm a year older, hopefully a year wiser. And so that becomes the processing of it, is not such a straightforward process.
You're so right. I was speaking to a very senior and old Arab in Dubai a few years ago on grief. And he said that grief is very difficult, but God has given us the power to forget. And if you did not have the power to forget, can you imagine what would have happened to us if we continued to grieve? And this is very similar to the spiral that you're talking about.
Well, yes, and I also, but I want to say it's not just the forgetting, but it is the remembering.
Correct.
So, in fact, when I was reading the questions that you were giving me, you submitted possible questions.
Yeah.
I have a feeling in my body, a feeling of I look forward to that. I mean, because you see, if I'm grieving something, if I lost something and I'm grieving it, it means it was a good thing. There was something wonderful about it. And I don't want to lose that in my life. I want to stay in the gratitude for having had that. And I can visit it again.
Correct. Well said. So my next question for you, Sheila, is that, how do you see the role of rituals in the process of grieving? And can you share an example of a healing ritual?
Well, first of all, let's just pause a moment to recognize the world we live in, which is so fast-paced and so changing. I mean, while we're on this call here, they're changing the way this system even works.
Correct.
So you thought this morning we knew how it worked, but maybe we don't.
Yeah.
So that need to, first of all, slow down and step back a bit. And then the notion of the ritual, and art is so involved in ritual, that there needs to be a container, and ritual and art give us that container. I can give you an example. You mentioned earlier about storytelling, which is at the heart of a really good grief situation, because the stories, people want to hear the stories. Correct. They want to understand what this person was or this situation was, and so but when you have that, I'll give you an example. So I discovered just being online and having people tell their stories, and then we could do it in a ritualistic way by having one of the singers, one of the people, sing a line from a song that we're all familiar with, and the one that she chose was sometimes I feel like a motherless child, and we all know this, and so she sings that line, and then somebody tells their story. A short, we practice 3-sentence stories. Then she sings it again, and another story. She sings it again. So you see what's happened. We've created a container, and we've also created something that is similar in all the stories. All the stories have that thread of feeling alone or isolated, or from what you love, or who loves you.
I love this example, a story that you just shared. Thank you. My next question for you, Sheila, is how can friends and family best support someone going through a loss?
So that's part of how come I wrote these books, for sure. So what is needed is, for this is a place that you can find your calm, in terms of if somebody is having their experience of their loss, their sorrow, their anger, sometimes, whatever the feelings are, they need a companion that can stay with them and not take it on, not become, so, because actually what happens, part of what keeps this from working very well is that people I don't want to tell you this because now you're going to be upset, and then I'm going to have to take care of you.
Absolutely.
So So that's not a good thing, you know. And but if we don't share, then there's things we don't know. Or, I mean, one of the things I wrote Warrior Mother because of some of the experiences I had that I never heard anyone talk about. And I thought, well, this isn't good, you know. I compared it to childbirth. There was in our country a time when no one spoke of this. And my father said in his day, you would never say the word pregnant. I mean, no. So then nobody knows. And it's something that all these women are going to go through. And so if nobody ever knows anything about it, it doesn't make any sense at all.
I agree. And, you know, I love the point that you just told me about pregnant, because I was talking to my son a few years ago, and I said, you know, when my wife was pregnant, we would say she is expecting. And now my son and my daughter-in-law are expecting. And both of them would say, we are expecting.
Yes.
I said, you know, that's such a big change that has happened. But
that is a big change,
isn't it? Now, the young couples think very differently.
Yes. And this is, you're mentioning, I think, something really, it's bigger than that. We're getting more a sense of we. We're getting more a sense of community.
Correct.
We're getting more a sense of what our ancestors would say. There's an expression, I am because you are. That notion, and that's why we don't want to forget all the people that have influenced us and been a part of our lives. Correct. Because we're it. We're that, you know, a big part of us. It's a big part of us. Yeah.
Very well said. Yes, absolutely right. My next question is that, you know, can you talk about the importance of self-care for those in grief and the caregiver?
Well, that is a book. I have a book about that. The book I have about that it's called Still Poem. And when this is the second version of the book. I brought it out again. And this is called a self-care playbook for caregivers to find ease and time to breathe and reclaim joy. And at the time that I wrote the original, which is in 90, it came out in 92. I mean, self-care was like, people didn't get what it was. It was either it was selfish, you know, to think of yourself, or there was this selflessness of only thinking of others. And my husband actually came up with this notion. Self-care is in the middle. Self-care is I'm aware of other people and their needs. I care about that, but I also, and it's an and, I care about myself. And if I don't take care of myself, I'm really not going to be there for you. It's just the way.
Sheila, I have time for two more questions for you. My next question is that what advice would you give to someone who's accompanying a loved one through a life-threatening illness?
Well, that's what I wrote a lot about in Warrior Mother. I think that of course, I was the mother, and I had to make sure she didn't have to take care of me, because that's a double whammy.
Correct.
So part of it was I had my own community of support, and people that literally held me up, and we'd be at the medical center, you know, and just getting not very good news, and then one of my friends would call, you know, and so I say that it's a we. Well, some experiences, some stories are too big for one body to hold. Correct. We can't.
Yeah.
It takes, you know, we say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village for us to stay healthy and alive.
Absolutely. Well said. And my last question to you, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation, what message would you like to leave with anyone currently experiencing grief?
Well, I take a breath on that, the message. So I do. I'm going to show you because I just got it.
Please. Yes.
This book.
Okay.
It isn't, it's up now on Amazon, but it's not available yet to purchase. But you can, well, you can purchase
Pre-order.
it, pre-order, yeah.
Yeah.
So this shows the spiral. A young woman in Pittsburgh did this for me in terms of this design. And I think that we're on the verge of a cultural shift in the arts as medicine, I feel like. And another book that I'm familiar with that you may be familiar with too is Your Brain on Art.
Okay.
So John Hopkins and these two women have put together all the different arts. They attach little wires to people's brains, and then they have them watch a movie or make a drawing or listen to music and figure out what is happening in the brain.
Wow.
And it turns out that we are, first of all, vibratory beings. So when the music plays, there's certain things that happen.
Yeah.
When we move, we're clearing or something very dramatic is happening in our brains. So when we see visual art or walk among certain things, the kinesthetic is highlighted. So obviously right now I say to people, get involved.
And I love the cover.
Well, and the other part is it's two things. We think we have to be good at it. It's not about that. So in fact, the art that you aren't very skilled in may be the most powerful for you because it'll give you information you don't have about yourself or about your situation, the discovery aspect. So sometimes art is done on behalf of us. Tonight there will be a woman, we're looking at lament, which is a vocal form of grieving, and she's going to sing an operatic lament for us, and we will be impacted. We will be impacted by that. And then we're going to do some things where we use our own voices. So those are
amazing.
All possibilities. Yeah, I think it's art is medicine.
Absolutely. Well said. Sheila, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about grief. I think I've learned many new things from you on grief. Thank you for speaking to me about your book, Still Point, which is, I think, it's so critical for caregivers, whether they're looking after someone old or someone who's passed away or someone who's grieving. Thank you also for speaking to me about your earlier book, Warrior Mother, and maybe I will schedule a separate conversation with you about Warrior Mother because the topic seems to be fascinating. But thank you again for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Well, yes, and I just want to say again, the one that's just coming out, The Art of Grieving, how art and art making help us grieve and live our best lives.
Well said. Well said. And good luck to you for the book.
Thank you so much, Ash. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.